governments could destroy the cryptocurrencies by shutting down the internet or interfering with the internet, just as they can try to destroy gold and silver by confiscating them or outlawing them, has been done from time to time.
Start investing in gold and silver at sdbullion.com today and join over 35,000 precious metals investors who have made the switch to the lowest gold and silver prices in the industry. SD Bullion recently claimed a spot on the prestigious Inc. 500, making them one of the fastest growing bullion companies in the United States. With low bullion prices and over-the-top customer service, SD Bullion is setting the standard for precious metals transactions. Visit www.sdbullion.com today. Start saving on every precious metals purchase you make.
Hey everyone, this is Elijah Johnson with silverdoctors.com, and our special guest today is Chris Powell, the Treasurer and Secretary of GATA.org, the Gold Antitrust Action Committee. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, very glad to be here, Elijah.
All right, now I'd like to discuss the stress in the gold market. You recently gave a speech in Vancouver where you talked about that there's a lot of stress in the gold market right now. You said gold is being taken out of the COMEX in recent months. Did you want to expand on that?
Oh, sure. The New York Commodities Exchange futures contracts for gold and silver traditionally have been only paper markets. There's been very little offtake from the COMEX for gold and silver. This has changed dramatically in recent months. There's been great increases in the amount of metal that has been withdrawn from the COMEX upon the completion of futures contracts. This seems to be a very substantial change. I can't be sure what it indicates, but it does suggest anyway that there's a shortage of metal available at current prices, and that people are going to the COMEX for delivery of real metal, which they had not been doing for many years. So I think that's fairly perceived as an indicator of strain in the monetary metals markets.
Now, you also talked about in your speech that revelations this year have really made the truth of gold and silver price manipulation undeniable. Can you expand on some of these revelations we've seen recently and give us an update on, especially you talked about the Deutsche Bank revelations?
Yeah, Deutsche Bank has essentially confessed to rigging the gold and silver markets in collusion with other bullion banks. That admission came as an offer of settlement of antitrust lawsuits brought in federal court in New York. Deutsche Bank has offered to pay $100 million to settle those cases, and this is not exactly proof of GATA's thesis, which has really relied more on the intervention by central banks. But all the parties in all the defendants in that antitrust case are officially agents of the U.S. Treasury Department, primary dealers in U.S. government securities. I think it's doubtful that they would operate this way in the monetary metals markets if they didn't have the implicit approval of governments and central banks. Now, we'll see how the lawsuit works out. The court has allowed the lawsuit to proceed. Deutsche Bank has offered to settle and put money in escrow for the settlement. The U.S. Justice Department has been trying to stall the lawsuit in the name of undertaking its own investigation. I suspect that the Justice Department is trying to stall the lawsuit because it knows that any serious inquiry in this matter is going to lead eventually to the U.S. government as the underwriter of the bullion banks that are helping to suppress the gold price. But there is enough evidence on the record, enough admission in the antitrust lawsuits to show that the gold market has been rigged, at least by the bullion banks. I'm hoping that the lawsuit continues and eventually produces documentation, very contemporaneous documentation, showing that the U.S. government and its allies are the real implementers of the scheme.
What kind of coverage has the mainstream media been taking to this? I know in our last interview, we talked about how the mainstream media kind of turns a blind eye to this manipulation. With the recent Deutsche Bank lawsuit, what kind of coverage is it finally getting into the mainstream?
Well, there has been some mainstream media coverage about the antitrust lawsuit in New York and Deutsche Bank's admission. It has been very understated. It's pretty clear that the mainstream financial news organizations do not want to emphasize this story. It's embarrassing to banking institutions that are major advertisers with the mainstream financial news organizations, but I think they are also reluctant to alienate the governments they've been covering up for. I have sent reams of our documents to, I think, nearly every major financial news organization on the planet for many years. They all have this. They all know about it, and I think it's essentially a prohibited topic for them. It is simply too politically sensitive for them to get into.
All right. Now, one of the last topics I'd like to discuss today is the rise in cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin recently. Now, a lot of people are saying that this is a sign that, currencies are dying and that the dollar is dying and people are wanting to move away from paper currencies. I guess first, if we can just get your perspective on the rise in cryptocurrencies right now.
Well, the cryptocurrencies, I think, are popular in part because there's no futures markets in them, and their price is much harder for governments to suppress. If something has a futures market, it can be suppressed by government intervention very easily. Peter Warburton, a British economist, noted this in an essay he wrote in 2001. He thought that it would take only a few $1 billion for governments to control commodity prices by intervening in the futures markets, and indeed the reports filed by CME Group with the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission show that CME Group is offering volume trading discounts to governments and central banks for trading all futures contracts on CME Group exchanges, so that governments are surreptitiously active in the commodity markets to control prices is, I think, a matter of documentation with the SEC and the CFTC, even though the mainstream financial news organizations will not report it. The cryptocurrencies, they trade more freely than gold and silver do, and I think that's why they have risen so dramatically lately as monetary inflation has increased so much, whereas gold and silver, which are connected to futures markets, are not allowed to reflect it because they'd be noticed. I think people who've got an open mind here need only to compare the Bitcoin price to gold and silver futures prices to realize that something is a pretty big anomaly here.
Right, and I was wondering if you could stress the one point, just maybe a little more clearer for our viewers. Are you saying that if gold and silver were not manipulated, they'd be trading similar to how cryptocurrencies are right now?
Yeah, they very likely would. Gold and silver have the advantage over cryptocurrencies is having some physical manifestation. I mean, I don't understand the Bitcoin computer formulas. I don't think one person in a million who owns Bitcoin understands the computer formulas that operate it. If the government turned off the internet tomorrow, Bitcoin would be useless. But gold and silver in possession are tangible assets. You can hold them. You can see them. They're real, which is more than can be said for the cryptocurrencies. Which is not to say that the cryptocurrencies won't succeed. I'm just saying gold and silver do have the tangibleness as an advantage over the cryptocurrencies. But the future of these assets is going to depend, I think, entirely on government policy. Governments could destroy the cryptocurrencies by shutting down the internet or interfering with the internet, just as they can try to destroy gold and silver by confiscating them or outlawing them, has been done from time to time. These issues that we're reviewing here are great political issues, and I don't think anybody can make any reliable prediction about them. We have to know how politics is going to turn out. We have to know if governments are going to trend in the democratic or totalitarian directions, and I don't know that.
Well, Chris Powell, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we let you go, did you want to share with the viewers any last thoughts you had and remind them where they can find you online? Oh,
yes, thank you for that, Elijah. Yes, Ghana has an internet site, gata.org. We try to do daily dispatches to the people on our email list, dispatches about developments of interest to people who are interested in the gold and silver markets. And you can sign up for those dispatches. They're free just by going to our internet site. We are a nonprofit, non-stock educational and civil rights organization recognized by the U.S. Internal Revenue Service as federally tax exempt. So we welcome contributions from the public, and information about that is on our internet site. We're really a small nonprofit organization that does not get an awful lot of support from the mining industry or big investors. There's a lot of little people who support us. There's a few big people who support us from time to time, and we couldn't survive without them. But we do welcome support from people who think we ought to continue to press these issues.
All right. Once again, Chris Powell, thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, thank you, Elijah.